All right, I want to talk about, spend a little time on this. In a development as predictable as the sunrise this morning, it's come to light that Pete Hegseth, Trump's pick for defense secretary, was accused of sexual assault. And I say that this was predictable because Pete Hegseth is a man who is a conservative and who was picked by Trump to hold a position of power and who the Democrats really, really, really hate. So all of those factors together are virtually guaranteed that we'd hear lurid claims and allegations of various kinds, and here they are. So here they are, right on schedule. They've showed up. Now, what makes this also ugly, of course, is that there's never any way to know for sure if somebody's innocent of a rape claim made against them. I mean, usually there's no way to know for absolute sure. None of us were there when the supposed crime was committed. And the accused usually can't prove a negative. It's very hard to prove that something didn't happen. This is what makes false claims so incredibly evil. Even if they are false, and even if most people suspect that they're false, even if most people are very confident that they're false, there's no way for the accused to ever fully and definitively exonerate himself, which just means that bad actors can use the false accusation to smear him for the rest of his life. Totally innocent, doesn't matter. It could still be used to smear you for the rest of your life. That's what makes this so evil. However, although none of us can know what did or did not happen, in any kind of, anytime something happens in a room where you weren't there and there's no video or audio, you can't know for sure what happened, we can still use our judgment to decide what we think is likely true. And using my judgment on this one, I have to say that from my perspective, this rape claim is among the least credible, the least believable, the most apparently outrageous that I've ever seen. I mean, this is Kavanaugh level stuff. The only difference is that this is a claim from 2017. With Kavanaugh, it was like 30 years ago or whatever. But everything else, it's about as credible as that, which is to say, not at all. So I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. I just simply don't believe it. Now, admittedly, I'm biased because I went in with heavy skepticism just because the rape claim is such a common tool used against Republicans that the media is trying to destroy, especially Republicans who are in some kind of position where they've been appointed to something and they're going to go through a confirmation process, whether it's a cabinet pick or a Supreme Court. This especially, just like it's going to happen. And then when it does, you can't help but be very skeptical before you even listen, before you know the story. You're immediately like, oh, okay, yeah, here we go. But still, I read through the facts, let them speak for themselves, and the facts here just make it impossible for me personally to take the claim seriously. So we'll go through this, and I want to start with how the mainstream media is covering it. So I'm going to play this CBS report. It's kind of long; it's about 2.5 minutes, but it's important that you hear the whole report, so I can then tell you what you don't hear in this report. Right, but let's listen to it.
We turn now to this newly revealed police report that offers graphic details into a sexual assault claim against Donald Trump's pick to run the Department of Defense. The police report is now published for anyone to read. Pete Hegseth's lawyer maintains it was a consensual encounter. CBS's Nicole Killen was asking tough questions today on Capitol Hill.
Vice President-elect J.D. Vance played host to Defense Secretary pick Pete Hegseth on Capitol Hill today, just as the news broke of a graphic newly released police report that detailed Hegseth's involvement in an alleged sexual assault in 2017.
Did you sexually assault a woman in Monterey, California?
I have, as far as the media is concerned, I'll keep this very simple. The matter was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared, and that's where I'm going to leave it.
According to the report, a woman referred to as Jane Doe met Hegseth during a conference at the Hyatt Regency Hotel. Both were drinking with a group at the hotel bar when Doe said things got fuzzy. A nurse who treated her later said Doe believed something may have been slipped into her drink. She then recalled being in a hotel room when Hegseth took her phone from her hand. When she got up to leave, Hegseth blocked the door with his body. Her next memory was when she was on a bed or a couch and Hegseth was over her. His dog tags were hovering over her face.
I don't know the young lady.
Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullin said Hegseth addressed the allegation in their meeting.
I don't think there's any way in the world you're going to say that this was a sexual assault.
What makes you so
confident about that.
Have you read the report?
I actually have. I've got it right here.
I read the report too. It's pretty clear that of what took place. It was pretty clear that it was. She definitely wasn't drugged to a room. It was two people flirting with each other.
Well, it also said she couldn't get out of the room.
Well, that's one person's opinion.
Hegseth's attorney told CBS News police found the allegations to be false and claimed it was Hegseth who was intoxicated and the woman who was the aggressor. He also confirmed the Fox News host paid the woman an unknown sum of money after she threatened to sue, fearing it could cost him his job.
The district attorney in Monterey said tonight that her office declined to file charges against Hegseth because it determined that they could not be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Nora?
All right, Nicole Killian with those tough questions tonight. Thank you.
So that's a pretty good representation of how the media is covering the story, which isn't to say it's a good representation of the story. It's a good representation of how the media is covering it. And it's exactly how you'd expect them to cover it. That is incredibly dishonestly. A lot of extremely pertinent information was left out of the report. So let's go through it. Let's talk about the facts let's talk about the facts, first of all, that are not in dispute. The things that everybody agrees on. The details that we know with relative certainty and which can be proven by witnesses, security camera footage, and so on. So we'll start at the beginning here. Hegseth and this woman were both at a conference, apparently some kind of conservative conference thing, at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in 2017. The woman, and this is something that, unless I missed it somehow, CBS doesn't tell you, the woman is married. And not only is she married, but apparently her husband and children were at the hotel with her. Okay. So this is a married woman who apparently attended this conference with her family. Why would you not mention that in the report? Well, you don't mention the report because it makes her sound really bad. It makes her sound really bad. Because at a minimum, she's late at night at a hotel bar drinking with some guy, and her husband is there upstairs. Automatically, that makes her sound terrible. Well, we don't want to include anything in the report that will make this woman sound terrible. Because if we already know this woman did a terrible thing, well, terrible people do terrible things. Another terrible thing you could do is lie about a rape accusation to get yourself out of trouble. So let's leave that out. Let's not talk about that. This is what the media says. So, but she's apparently, at this conference with her, she attended with her family. Late at night at this bar, her husband is in the hotel room with her children. She's down at the bar drinking with Pete Hegseth. Again, this part not really in dispute. And by the way, just a note for any men out there. If you're at a hotel with your wife and it's midnight and she's out drinking with someone who isn't you, she's cheating. Okay, let me just clear up any confusion you might have. Yeah, she's cheating. You're sitting in the hotel room worried. Well, she can't be cheating. No, she is. She is 1,000% she is. Apparently, her husband went looking for her at 2 a.m. and couldn't find her. Couldn't get her on the phone. Couldn't find her. Once again, if you don't know where your wife is at 2 a.m., she's cheating. That terrible feeling you have in the pit of your stomach where you're all the worst case scenarios. Yep, that's it. That's what's 1,000% probability. Okay. Cheating or dead, I guess, are the two possibilities. And I don't mean to be morbid, but that's really it. You can't find your wife at 2 a.m. She's cheating or she's dead. And yet this woman showed back up in her the next morning to her room with her husband. Had some sort of story about falling asleep in a friend's room. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so back to that night. She goes up to Hegseth's room. She was not dragged up there. She was not carried up there. Okay? She walked up there. According to the security camera footage. There's footage of her walking up to the room. And that's all the stuff we know for sure. So now they're in the hotel room. In the hotel room that they both were drinking. Okay, so you can't use the whole, she was drunk, so this automatically is not her consent. He was drinking too. So he could accuse her of rape, I guess. I mean, this is what we're always told. Well, if a woman was drinking, and then automatically she can't consent. Drunk sex is non-consensual. Well, so is he drinking. So she's a rapist. She raped him. He should sue her. So now they're in the hotel room. In the room, there are no witnesses aside from those two. There's no security footage. One would hope. One would hope there's no cameras in the hotel room. And Hegseth says that they had consensual sex. The woman says that she wanted to leave, but he forcibly stopped her and then raped her. He said, she said there, okay? No other evidence to go on either way. But for that part of the story, okay, we got a bunch of stuff we know, and then there's this part here in the hotel room. We can't know, nobody was there. It was just those two. But then we go back, and now there's more stuff that we know, because the story continues. And here's another one that CBS didn't mention, I don't think. This woman did not report the supposed sexual assault until 4 days later. She says that she didn't remember it until days after the fact. She told her husband about the quote-unquote assault 3 days after it supposedly occurred. Police investigated. As you heard, he was cleared. They found no solid evidence of rape. They found no evidence that she was drugged or whatever. There was something put in her drink. If Pete Hegseth, okay, I mean, come on. Pete Hegseth, at this point, a well-known Fox News host, is at a conservative conference slipping drugs in women's drinks, and that's the claim here. If that happened, when she went to go report the rape, they could have done a test. They would have found it in her system. They didn't find it. And she doesn't even know that. I mean, apparently she's saying, well, he might have. I don't know. Things got fuzzy. Well, I don't know. You're drinking all night? Maybe that's why things got fuzzy? It's midnight. It's 1 a.m. You've been drinking all night. Things tend to get fuzzy. There was something in my system. Yeah, all the alcohol was in your system. It has that effect. Okay, so you've got a bunch of verifiable facts leading up to whatever happened in the hotel room, then a bunch of verifiable facts after the hotel room. All we can do then is draw probabilistic conclusions about what happened during that dark spot, during the gap in the story, based on the other stuff that we know with reasonable certainty. And here's what I know with reasonable certainty about the woman. She walked up to a hotel room with a man who is not her husband. Walked, not dragged, not carried, not escorted at gunpoint. Walked. There is no conceivable reason why you would ever do that unless you intended to have sex with the person. What was she going up there to play chess? Was she going up there to watch Seinfeld reruns? Which even that, by the way, would be like wildly inappropriate for a married woman to do. But no, she went up there to have sex with him. I feel very, very confident in that assumption. There is one reason and one reason only that a married woman goes to a man's hotel room in the middle of the night, or an unmarried woman. Okay, there's only one reason why this happens, and only one possible result can be intended. Now, here's what else I feel confident assuming about this woman, and it is an assumption, but she's a liar. And she's a very, very bad person. I mean, cheating on your husband is very bad. Going to another man's hotel room while your husband and children are in the hotel in a different room is just, if you are not a totally evil, soulless scumbag, how could you do that? I mean, even if you're just like a regular cheater, bad enough, but even if you're just that level of evil, you would think that the presence of your children and husband in this hotel with you would be too much guilt. You wouldn't be able to get over that. To then go through with this, I mean, to do that is just, it's monstrous. It's like a monstrous level of treachery, in my opinion. I'm talking about my opinion. Like I said, I can't say for sure what happened. I don't know. This is my perspective. From my perspective, this woman is a very, very terrible human being who is obviously willing to lie to get her way. So what do I think happened? What's my own theory of the case? I don't think you need to be Sherlock Holmes here. I think it seems to me that if I were to explain all these facts and what's a theory that makes sense of all it? Well, here's my theory. Again, you don't need to be a professional detective, a private eye to put it all together. It seems to me that she cheated on her husband and then a few days later lied and said that she was drugged and raped. Why would she make up the story? Well, because she was drinking and flirting with a famous TV personality at a bar in full view of other people. It seems extremely likely that her husband may have heard about that. When he went down to the bar to look for her at 2 a.m. and couldn't find her, like it seems very likely that either then or at some point shortly after, somebody said something to him. Oh yeah, I saw him with that Pete Hegseth guy. What? You saw him with Pete Hegseth? It seems very likely that he had suspicions, unless he's the dumbest person who's ever lived. Seems very likely he had suspicions, and so at some point, the wife could either be honest and say, yeah, I'm a horrifically evil person who cheated on you while you were watching our kids in a hotel room down the hall. Or she could desperately invent some story to try to avoid accountability. And I think that's what happened. I think that's what happened here. Just based on my own subjective analysis, that's my theory. And I feel pretty confident in it. And this kind of, look, the false accusations, I think are very common. Now, we can't know how common. That's the thing. They're false. There's no way to quantify them. You hear, sometimes the sort of believe all women types on the other side of this, they'll come up with totally made up statistics about, oh no, false rape accusations only happen X number of percentage, and actual rape is way more common than false rape accusations. You can't know that. It's literally impossible to know that because they're false. So if somebody's falsely accused of rape and it's never discovered that it was false, then we don't know how many times that's happened. There's just no possible way to know. But so once again, you're left with just using logic and common sense and kind of drawing deductions. And to me, it seems pretty clear that false accusations are probably common. In fact, it seems most reasonable to assume that false accusations are at least as common as rape itself, if not more. Because there are a lot, when you have a case where there's an actual rape that occurs, what kind of man is doing that? What can motivate that? Well, these are, for actual rapists, they are horrifically evil, monstrous men who find pleasure in forcing themselves on women and in the suffering and everything that causes. Like, these are just the worst of the worst, evil people. Those are the rapists. However many men you have in that category is how many rapists you have. And that exists, that's real. So thank God it's not close to the majority of men or anywhere near that. But, you do have that population. Over on the false rape accusers, well, what can motivate that? What kind of women do that? Well, you have some women who are just really, really evil monsters themselves, and they get off on destroying men's lives. And they're kind of they're in the same category as the male rapist. This is like their version of rape. They can't actually force themselves physically on men, but they can get their kicks by imposing themselves on men in another way, and they do it that way. So there's that. So it's like, how many horrifically monstrous men do we have? How many horrifically monstrous women do we have? Probably about the same. So already it's reason to believe it's about equal there. But then you've got these other categories. Then you have women who resort to false accusations who maybe it's not because they enjoy it necessarily, but it's self-preservation. Trying to avoid accountability. They make up the story because the other option is admitting they did something terrible. That's still evil. That's still very evil. But you have the women who resort to this for, maybe we'll say, more practical reasons. And you add that into the category, which contributes to the false accusers. So you got all the women, these kinds of women, the ones who come up with the false accusations. You got the kinds of men who actually commit rape. Just seems really reasonable to me to assume that it's at least equal in terms of the numbers. Which is all the more reason why there just have to be punishments for false accusers. There have to be severe punishments for this stuff. It's so terrible. And the effect that it has on men's lives is it's so severe that it can't even be quantified. And there have to be punishments. There have to be severe punishments. I mean, I'm not the only one to say that the punishment for a false rape accusation should be the same as the punishment for rape. Whatever penalty, as the woman inventing the story, whatever penalty you were trying to have imposed on the man who's innocent, in this case, should be imposed on you. Now, that doesn't mean that in a scenario like this, it doesn't mean that if a man's accused of rape and then he's not charged or cleared, that automatically the woman goes to jail. Of course not. Now that's a whole separate crime that has to be investigated. She has to be tried for that. And it has to be proven that she made it up. If it can't be proven, then obviously there's not going to be any criminal penalty there. But we need to start seeing women who falsely accused put on trial and have their own lives put on the line. That's the only way that you could have any chance of stopping some of this sort of thing from happening. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.